Uncle Shannon here, and I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about what I would call a new field. Now, for many years I've worked as a naturopath. Depending on the country that you live in around the world, you could be called a naturopath, or you might be called a naturopathic doctor or a naturopathic physician, but most people treat you, regardless of what the laws of the land designate you, as basically normally a practitioner of some sort who tries to heal the body naturally. And basically, many people would see you, much like they would see a Western doctor, looking for many of the same answers, but they expect you to be able to pull those answers out of nature. Now, the thing about most naturopaths now is most naturopaths don't use nature anymore, do we? We use synthetic vitamins and minerals. We take sewage sludge and add asbestos and we call it a synthetic vitamin, or we take nicotinic acid from nicotine and oxidized tobacco leaves and call it vitamin B3 and put it in a capsule, and then wonder why people don't get well. And then it vasodilates as the body responds to it, and we do all these clinical studies to back it up. There's plenty of other vasodilators out there we could use that would be much more effective, isn't there? And if you're a herbalist, I know that you know that I'm speaking the truth. So we're not so much called a naturopath anymore. What we used to be called is a vitalist. What a vitalist does is a vitalist gets the spark inside you, gets your body working better naturally. It makes sure all your organs are working properly in a very natural way. So most naturopaths, at least in my country of Australia, basically function like nutritionists now. You go see them and they want to put in some synthetic vitamin, some synthetic mineral. They charge you a fortune for some oil squeezed out of a dead animal like a fish, when you could get something for $3 out of a plant, and think that they're experts and wonder why they don't get results. They do get results, but it's not from 0 to 100%. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to found a new field. Now, that word vitalist doesn't have the best connotation. The old school natural health healers used to be called vitalists, but it's not a very popular term anymore. It's fallen out of favour. So I spent many years looking at different studies, cosmology and archaeology and all these different studies to try and come up with a new name, a new label, where as natural health practitioners around the world, we could come up with a new vocabulary, that we could use to train our children and succeeding generations in our family and practitioners in a field to really take things to the next level. Now, the term that I came up with was I looked at all the different studies. Really, we study human life and we try to bring the spark back to human life. We honour life. And the science of vitalism designates there's a difference between living and non-living entities. So there's something that life can't be created or destroyed. It was created by our creator or God or whatever divine force you want to call that. But even if you believe in evolution, I'm respectful of that too. But and there's obviously a crossover where life moves forward and does evolve. But the bottom line is there's an evolution and there's a vital spark inside us. So I decided to found a field and call it vital biology, which means that we study life and we bring the spark to that life. I was thinking of putting the word human, but I thought it could be a dog, it could be a horse, it really could be anything that you're trying to bring life to. So I'm not really too worried. As long as it's life, we're trying to heal it. Now, some life is not preferable. Certain types of bacteria you don't want living in the human organism, but it's vital or nothing would ever degrade back into the earth. That's what bacteria and things are there for, to eat things back and, put it back into the ground of the earth. Now, to be a vital biologist, there's really three founding principles of this field that will take you beyond being a naturopath, beyond being a naturopathic physician or whatever qualification you've got in your country, and into being a world-class healer. Now, we've already discussed that most naturopaths just focus on step 2, don't they? They just focus on putting synthetic nutrients in. But we all know that the most important principle in health is to keep the body clear of its own waste. The secret that we've always been taught in natural health to get over incurable illnesses and things like this is to keep the body free of toxemia, to keep it free of its own waste. That is the most important mineral principle, much more important than the nutrients. So this is where we start. There's 4 places poisons can leave the body. We call them the elimination channels. You've got the bowels, defecation, kidneys, urination, respiratory system, respiration, and the skin. perspiration. Only 4 holes that poisons can leave your body. If I give you lead poisoning as a metaphor, about 70% will lead through your bowels, about 30% will lead through your kidneys, and then about 1 or 2% you'll breathe out and you'll sweat out. Now, the bowels and the kidneys only have one point of exit. You've just got defecation and you've got urination. And we talked about lead being that metaphor, the 70% and the 30%. Right? Are you with me so far? But the respiratory system and the skin, out of those 4, have 2 exits. You can breathe out or blow out, and you can sweat out or you shed. Snakes shed their skin in one go. Human beings shed by the cell. That's mainly what dust is. Dust is just the 3 billion cells that you excrete into the air every day, you get rid of. So these are the 4 places poisons can leave. Defecation, bowels, urination, kidneys, you breathe out and blow out to the respiratory system, and you sweat and you shed. There's a technique called dry skin brushing where you can brush towards the heart and shed that. They're the 4 places that all poison can leave the body. There's 2 other organs that are important, but they're not elimination channels. You've got the liver, which pulls all the poisons out of the blood, sends it into the gallbladder, and then sends it out through the bowels. And then you've got the lymphatics, which we sometimes call the 5th system or the carrier system. And this carries all the poisons around the bloodstream, around the body, and it carries it back to the elimination channels. So we say elimination first. Right? Elimination is where it all begins and falls. No matter what the condition, get the bowels and get the kidneys moving, and potentially you may look at the respiratory system and skin. We treat the respiratory system and the skin as backup organs. If you've got persistent acne, notwithstanding the fact that acne can be 2 things. It can be hormonally based, so we want to tune up the reproductive organs. We'll talk about that elsewhere. Or it can be elimination. But we treat the skin when it's elimination, like acne, or a persistent chronic postnasal drip, or runny nose. We treat those as backup organs. Like you can hear me now. So we treat that in natural health that the body's so toxically loaded that the bowels and the kidneys aren't doing their work, and now the respiratory system and the skin is taking over. So we always try and move those 2. Elimination first. Primitive cultures have a bowel movement 30 minutes after every major meal. They literally go 30 minutes after every major meal. They have 3 bowel movements a day. If you're having 1 bowel movement a day, you're already constipated. Every 2 or 3 days, you're in a danger zone. Once a week or 2 weeks. My record was a lady who was having a bowel movement every 3 months. Where was that muck going? Worms, parasites, things that eat us away. I often have people want to bring me pictures of, all the worms and things that they eliminate. And I say, look, I believe you. I really don't need to see the pictures. But so elimination first. All right, that's what it all begins. It doesn't matter if it's a skin problem. What is? We get the bowels moving, we get the kidneys moving, and then we handle the respiratory system and skin. Now, I'll give you a clue. 70% of all mucus, phlegm, catarrh, any respiratory-based things secreted by the mucous membranes to bind that poison, drains through the stomach. And I remember my father was criticised for years. I remember him teaching me, and I said, Dad, you get hounded in this industry. You're the busiest in the country, and you get hounded because your respiratory formula doesn't just have lung herbs. Because most other naturopaths, they just, if you've got a respiratory problem, they treat the lungs, don't they? Well, he said, 70% of mucus medically passes through the stomach. He said, do you really want that sitting on your guts like lead? He said, we need to treat the nervous system so the lungs can expirate that muck. And he went through all these other systems with me. We need to support the kidneys to take a load off this. And when I looked at the way he designed his respiratory formula to get people well, only 2, 3, 4 of those 15 herbs were lung herbs. And I often have naturopaths study with me, and they get criticised no end because we use products that are effective, and yet they say, well, why aren't all of those 15 herbs just to do with the lungs? So elimination first. And if you want to be what we used to call a vitalist, what I'm going to call a vital biologist now, you bring the spark back to any sort of life. Elimination first. You keep it free of its own waste. You may have heard of Alexis Carrel, who kept a chicken embryo alive indefinitely just basically keeping it free of its own waste and giving it oxygen and water. Very, very famous study. He basically proved that life could live forever. Now, I'm not from the school of thought that says that life can live forever. I definitely believe that God or some higher power. I don't mind if you're an atheist or you believe you have a different take on evolution. I'm respectful of that too. I'm not here to tell you what to believe spiritually, but I definitely believe that we're mortal, that we're designed to die. Scientifically, there's something called the Hayflick limit, and the Hayflick limit is the fact that cells can only divide a certain number of times and they're gone. So elimination first. You've got to pull all the poisons out. Now, when you pull all those poisons out, it's not always pleasant, is it? Because people go into what's called a healing crisis, because all those poisons that are deposited in the organs of the body, the connective tissues, have to temporarily come out into the bloodstream on the way to these elimination channels. So people can feel quite sick, which means it's very important to minimize a healing crisis by drawing things out quickly and properly and monitoring that and doing that intelligently, which we'll go into another time. But elimination first. That's it. You know, we talk in emotional aspects about physiology first, the body and the mind connection, the body being superior to the mind and making certain changes. Elimination first. The second of these three pillars of good health, or being a vital biologist, if you will, is nutrients in. This is where most people start, isn't it? And they forget by far the most important principle. But I'll give you a clue. There's really a triad of nutrients that every human being needs. The most important is oxygen. Oxygen is 10 times more important than anything else. You can go without food for months. You can go without water for weeks. Oxygen, a few minutes and you're gone. Which means it's very important to train your clients to know how to breathe properly. Now, I don't always start there. You know, I don't always have people come in my office and say, look, you're not breathing properly. It sounds a bit weird considering we're making a paradigm shift in the culture now with this study. But that's where it starts. Now, I suggest to you that you learn how to breathe properly. You breathe through your nose, not your mouth. When people breathe through their mouth, they shut their head forward to have to try and breathe. It alters their posture. And also, once that tongue falls off the roof of the mouth, it stops putting a pressure through the pituitary gland. On the roof of the mouth, it sits at the base of the brain, which has to do with the endocrine system and hormones. And I see these kids that grow too tall or too short. And natural health, we're not a fan of giraffe's milk or dingo's milk or a milk from any other animal, let alone one that's going to clog up people's sinuses, but we'll talk about that another time. So the most effective way that I've learned to breathe, it's called lymphatic breathing. It's where you breathe in for a ratio of 1, you hold for a ratio of 4, and you breathe out for a ratio of 2. So you might breathe in for a count of 5, you hold for a count of 20, I'll go into another time, I won't do it now, and you exhale for a count of 10, as an example. But you exhale for twice as long as you inhale, and you hold for 4 times as long as you inhale. Now, this pumps the 5th system, also called the lymphatics. They found that the heart has a pump. Sorry, the circulation has a pump. It's the heart. The lymphatic system, which we often call the 5th system, because it carries the poison back to these 4 elimination channels, doesn't have a pump. A genius in the 1970s, a lymphologist, a genius Western doctor, we call him Dr. Jack Shields. He's actually French. He's actually Jacques Shields. But Jack Shields put cameras in people, and he found that the pump for the lymphatic system was right at the peak of that breath. You get to the peak, it's like these things called check valves open. Everything starts moving around, and you breathe out, and they stop again. You breathe in, it opens, it moves, and you exhale. You breathe out again. So oxygen is the most important mineral, by far. The second most important mineral that people need is water. Now, there's different ways to pH shift the water, which I'll go into another time, but oxygen and water are the 2 most important nutrients. Most of us are so spoiled in Western culture that we flush our toilet with it. We've got children in Africa at the moment, 37% of children in Africa, and I'm actually doing some aid through different organisations to assist that. But there's different, children in Africa, 37% don't even have water. We flush our toilet with it. We really take it for granted. Your dog drinks out of the toilet and drinks it. Now the third mineral in the triad is chlorophyll. It's the green molecule in plants. We believe in natural medicine that the primary stem cell in the human body is the human red blood cell. And the human red blood cell is the stem cell that makes every other cell in the human body. If you cut your finger, the blood comes, a scab forms, and then skin magically appears. We believe, contrary to Western medicine, that they believe that red blood cells is made in the bone marrow. This came from a study in 1952 of starving pigeons. Can you believe it, starving pigeons? The pigeons were starving and they found that the body was breaking down the bone marrow back into red blood cells to use in other parts of the body. Well, we're human beings and we're not starving. So we believe that the red blood cells are made in the crypts of the small intestine. There's 3 stages to your digestion, but you've got stomach, where everything's broken down into chyme. Then you've got 17 odd feet of small intestine, or little hairs called villi, that absorb all the nutrients through there. So 3 aspects: oxygen, water, and chlorophyll. Now, the fourth, sort of at the end of this, is fats and oils. Because every cell in the human body, the red blood cell at least, the red blood cell looks like the chlorophyll molecule in plants with a little bit of fat around it, what we call a membrane. Let me say that again. Every cell in your body has a fat membrane around it. A membrane is a two-way article. Things can go in and things can come out of it. So fats and oils, the red blood cell looks identical to the chlorophyll molecule in plants, except that the chlorophyll molecule has magnesium in the middle and the human hemoglobin has iron. So that's what we do. Poisons out, we flood the body with oxygen and water, chlorophyll and fats and oils to build those stem cells up. But then we go to the third step. There's a third step. And that's, we treat the body, the specific organs, and then we treat that internally and externally. That's the mark of being a vital biologist. What that means is someone's had a brain injury. What do? Keep the body free of its own waste. By the way, the waste will want to go to the weakest part of the body. So if the brain is the weakest part of the body, that's where the waste is going to want to settle. So what do? We take the poisons out through those channels, pull it out of the brain and everywhere through those 4 exits. We build the body generally to try and build that tissue up and cells as quick as we can. Then thirdly, we treat the body internally and externally. Specific organs. Now, there's about 12 to 15 major organs and systems, depending on how you want to quantify it. And I train my practitioners to be a genius in this area to know what organs to treat in what order and things. But basically that's the principle. If you've had a brain injury, we will give you herbs like ginkgo and brahmi and different things that will build brain tissue. Check with your medical doctor, by the way, or check with your naturopathic physician or whoever you see before just applying what I say, by the way, because ginkgo will interfere with certain Western medications and you need to be intelligent about how you do that. But we build the brain internally and then we build the brain externally. We literally put oils and herbs around the head and down the spinal cord. We treat the spine as an extension of the brain. So those are the three principles of being a vital biologist. Elimination first. Doesn't matter what the condition, consistently, this is the foundation. You don't get somebody having 3 bowel movements a day and then leave it. Oh, they've had 3 bowel movements a day, they can go back to being unhealthy again. 3 bowel movements a day, period, life, this is the foundation. Elimination first, daily, 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 daily. The body is accumulating more than it's eliminating, so we need to deal with that. We need to eliminate. Secondly, nutrients in. Natural nutrients, not synthetic vitamins and minerals. We get it in plant-based, whole foods, organically grown. The nutrients that make you up are designed to come from the soil. You're the quality of the soil that you've uptaken. And what uptakes the soil? Vegetables, greens, nuts, low sugar fruits, which is a few which I'll go into another time. But You are the soil, and the food is the carrier to get those minerals. The good book, the Bible, says you're the dust of the earth. Dust you are, dust you will return. Thirdly, then by the way, this is where most laymen are at, because most laymen are just nowadays trying to walk into eating good food, aren't they? They're getting over all sorts of different conditions by using this principle. They don't necessarily understand step one, although they've heard of detoxes. That they don't understand the principle that you've got to live that way. And then thirdly, what most people forget is the specific organs. So we don't just eat generally. If you want to be a good herbalist, I encourage you to think of herbs as going to different parts of the body. Even though they all do things generally, think of certain herbs as improving different organs. Now, this is where, if you wanted me to take you on and be a practitioner, this is where I show you how to build different parts of the body and how to work out which parts are weak without people even necessarily knowing about it. They're the 3 steps. I want you to remember those 3. Optionally, if you want to step 4 and you want to step 5, I would submit to you physiology and the power of muscles. I'm a big believer in Pilates, which was the work of Joseph Pilates. In fact, I'll use the word disagree. I don't agree with his principle of breathing. When you breathe, you're not meant to raise your shoulders. When you breathe, you're meant to push your belly out. And because 2/3 of your lungs are below your chest, your rib cage protects your lungs. I'm not a big fan of even though you're meant to fill your lungs everywhere, I'm not a big fan of his sort of hold your tummy in type of breathing. But apart from that, the man was a genius, because he isolated muscles and started to train the body that when you move, certain muscles are designed to move by themselves. Now, so I really believe emotions in the muscles. The musculoskeletal system is one of the least important systems in the body, because people can be paralyzed and still stay alive. All right, look at Christopher Reeve. He shattered his first 2 vertebrae in agony, but he was alive. The skeletal and the muscular system are often the most important systems to life in the human body, but they're the most important to have a rich quality of life. I train my practitioners to look at those last, but then when we deal with that, we deal with those quickly and efficiently, because your muscles is where life is lived. So I'm a big believer, fourthly, in physiology, getting people doing Pilates or something similar. I might devise some sort of biomedic system or something that people can use to do that, that's based on the work of Joseph Pilates, but perhaps takes it a step further with breathing. But people need to have structural support, because if people are in physical pain, it's really muscles attached to bones and shape bones. It's like if you had plastic surgery, you change the length of muscles, and those bones correspondingly begin to change length underneath. So people have back pain. There's layers of muscles down the back that we need to correct. Right? That would be the 4 founding principles. And I was thinking about the foundation of this, and there's also a 5th principle that I'd love to go on with you another time. But the 5th principle is really that of emotion. Where you're a leader, there's 2 things that you need to teach human beings. All right, emotionally. The first thing is you must help them find a way to utilize and be grateful for anything that's happened to them. Utilize, that comes from the work of Milton Erickson, Ericksonian approaches to therapy, where utilization is key. If something happens, it's God's gift. You've got to find a way to use it, and you've got to be grateful for it. It's not always easy, and doesn't mean be unempathetic. And the second thing you must do as a leader is you must show people that tomorrow is better than today. Anytime a human being is with you, you embody it, and you show them that tomorrow is better than today. And you may remember me talking about on another tape, the skill, the compassion, and the E3. The educate, you entertain, and you embody. So if you want me to take you on as a practitioner, I'm training thousands of people from all around the world to do this now. So I would encourage you, reach out to me. I'd be happy to train you personally. I'd be happy to certify you as a phytobiologist and a naturopath and all the relevant things in your country. And by the way, I'm not giving you some airy-fairy qualification. We're taking things to the next level. We're really taking natural education around the world, and we're making it deeper. We're making it more thorough. We're making it more regulated. We're supporting governments around the world. We're supporting children in Africa. We're supporting people in different countries so people can get access to medical care. We're not being anti-establishment. We're working with people hand in hand to raise the bar so that even Western physicians have support. The reason I decided to found a new field to do this was because I was really fed up with the quality of people around the world, the ego in some of the people in natural medicine, and the incompetency. So I'd be happy to hold your hand and really go into the elimination channels. Anything I tell you, use it. even if you don't know effectively how to use it, don't break the laws of the land or damage your loved ones in any way, but take what you can. Elimination, nutrients, internal and external. Always, again, check with your medical person or your physician or your qualified person before you do anything. Fourthly, physiology. And then fifthly, you embody that as a leader where utilization and gratitude, and you help people find that. And there's a whole psychological toolkit which I'll expose you to, different approaches to do that. And then fifthly, you show people that tomorrow is better than today, because all human progress comes from thinking it's going to get better. There was a beautiful project around the world called the It Gets Better project. It was really designed to help school kids who are at risk of suicide because they are bullying, to tell them, hey, tomorrow is better. That belief alone can be enough to pull a human being through a tough time. Now, I know I've been through some extremely tough times. I think you'd be surprised if I would have told you off camera. Some extreme physical adversity. We've all been through most adversity. I know you've got a story to tell. I'd be very humbled if you choose to reach out and email me. Even though I don't know you as a stranger, I'd be happy to take you on, listen to your story, care for you in any way you can, and perhaps work as a team so that we can empower you in your community, that you've got a friend that can empower you with medicine and tools and resources wherever you are in the world, so that people have access to medication, and perhaps we can help create a world without borders. Not that we don't support government, we honour the laws of the land, and we support the laws of the land, we honour our government, but perhaps we can begin to take things a step further again, and we can honour feedback and the response we're getting outside, and we can begin to shape and define the future. It's Will Shannon. If you want to ever reach me, you just go to willshannon.com, WILL for Will, Shannon, SHANNON, willshannon.com. I will be absolutely delighted to perhaps get to know you and hear in person how maybe you've used some of the things that I've told you to make a difference in your life and the lives of the people that